Surprise! It is a Saturday afternoon, and I am here live on YouTube. Yesterday, I posted a poll in the YouTube community asking what y'all would like to talk about. And I had every intention of trying to go live yesterday, but life was lifing. Pretty much since I got back from Oaxaca last Saturday, every day. I have had so many things to do. And those of you who have been on this channel, y'all know I like ease and simplicity. So all of this going, because I've been in the middle of a move has been a lot. So I did get to go live yesterday, and I thought I'd make up for it today, since tomorrow I will be on plane heading back El Salvador to host another Reclaim the Retreat. So we are going to talk today about my new apartment here in Mexico City. When I put the poll out there, that's what the majority of you said. If you go live, this is what I want to talk about. So if you got questions about the apartment, the move, um, and doing that here in Mexico City, feel free to drop those in the chat and we'll get them answered. Um, before we jump into this, there might be something new for whom the YouTube algorithm has served me up. So let me introduce myself just on the off chance there is somebody new here, either live or maybe there's somebody new watching the replay. If you're new here, welcome to the Picky Girl Nation. I am Adelia Aborishade, the Picky Girl in Chief. I am a financial educator and I am co-host of Reclaim the Retreat. Um, I left the United States a little over 7 years ago. I guess it was 7.5 years ago. I have lived in 4 different countries, but I currently reside in my most favorite place on earth, Mexico City. It is where I consider home. And this is my channel where I talk about my work, helping Black women master their money and become financially confident. But I also talk about my travels because I cannot seem to stay home. And I also talk about my life here in Mexico City. So if those are topics of interest to you, you are in the right place. You might want to go ahead and subscribe to the channel so that YouTube can keep my videos showing up in your. Hello, everybody. I did hesitate for a second live on a Saturday because I was like, who's around? Everybody got a life. They out in the streets doing things. So those who are joining me live, I appreciate you that I am not sitting here by myself talking to myself. Okay, so like I said, if you've got questions about the apartment and the move, feel free to drop those in the chat. I think I mentioned probably back in November, December, that I was looking for a new apartment. I um, have lived in Mexico City twice. The first time I moved here was in 2017. And I made a video. That was probably the first video. No, I'm getting ahead of myself. I moved here in 2017. It took me 2 months to find an apartment. And then I lived here for a year. I ended up moving to Asia for 2 years. And then I came back in July of 2020. And I gave myself a week to find an apartment. And anything about the apartment hunting process in Mexico City, it's work. And a week was ridiculous, but I did it. I found an apartment that pretty much had everything I wanted, um, in a week, and I lived there for 3.5 years. Great landlord. My landlord, let me tell y'all how great my landlord was, because I know you will hear lots of horror stories about the landlords here in Mexico. Yesterday was because actually my lease was up to, well, not my lease. I was supposed to move out today. But I went by yesterday to do like the final clean and get the last few things out, which I couldn't do because there was no electricity and no water, but that's unrelated. And my landlord came to get the keys, and as I was taking my stuff downstairs, he asked, he was like, "Well, how are you getting to your new apartment? Do you want to ride?" I mean, like that's how good my landlord was. So, I lived in the same place for 3.5 years. Um, I renewed my lease in August 2023, but I knew that was probably going to be my last time because I wanted to lower my rental costs. I don't know if y'all heard, but the exchange rate for the dollar versus the peso is not very favorable for those right now who make money in dollars. It has my costs have increased significantly simply because of the exchange rate, not necessarily because prices went up, although they did. So, I knew that that was probably going to be the last time I renewed my lease, not because I was unhappy with that apartment, but because I needed to lower my costs. And what was tricky is figuring out when to start the process. Because, like I just told y'all, for my very first apartment, it took me 2 months to find something. Um, Mexico City is a lot like New York City in that there is not enough housing and it is expensive. You compare it to the rest of the country. Excuse me, I got a little something in my eye. And you add to it, I have a dog, although I think most people in this city have a dog. However, I found it difficult to find an apartment my first time out the block that would accept the dog. So I think that lengthened apartment search time, but also trying to get all of the things you want into an apartment, that is incredibly difficult here. So you have to kind of prioritize your wants. Um, and for my very first apartment in 2017, my want was I could afford it and they would take my dog. Um, when I tell people what I paid in rent, particularly because of what rent prices look like now, they are flabbergasted. It was a good deal then. It's an incredible deal now. I had a two-bedroom, one-bath apartment. It was probably about 5 or 6 years old. It was furnished. That was a bed in each bedroom. They provided sheets. Did they? I think they bought pillows too. Um, there was a futon, not a full sofa, dining table, a large desk that I used to do my sewing at, and a refrigerator, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but in Mexico, refrigerators do not come with apartments, and a washer and dryer. Um, it was probably about 65 square meters. I don't know what that is in feet for 9,500 pesos. And at the time, the exchange rate was 20 to 1, 22 to 1. So I was not even paying $500 a month for a fully furnished, centrally located two-bedroom, one bath. Now, when I came back in 2020, that same apartment was available to rent, and the landlord was asking 12,000 pesos. the exchange rate was still about the same. So rents went up, but like in my brain, I still want to pay what I was paying back in 2017, and that is possible now. Um, so, um, so that's why I was looking to move. Now, my lease was not up until August. And so the tricky thing was figuring out when to start looking because it can be a tough process, even in the best of times. One of the things that I noticed was there were far fewer rental units on the market. Mexico City, well, not just Mexico City, Mexico is a place where probably 90% of the properties never make it to an online site, that most people rent by putting a sign out in the window. So a lot of foreigners, we're used to being able to go online, and people want to like rent things sight unseen. I do not recommend that at all. And so, one of the suggestions we always make is if you're going to rent, you need to walk the neighborhood you're interested in and look for rent signs and call those people, message those people, that sort of thing. Well, one of the things I noticed probably back in like September, October, there weren't as many for rent signs as there normally were. And there was an overabundance of for sale signs. And I briefly looked, you just kind of periodically look online to see what are rent prices doing so that you kind of have a feel for things. And I thought I found something back in, it had to have been like September, October. And I applied for that apartment and I didn't get it, which that was the first inkling that told me things are different. A year ago, I helped somebody find an apartment, and the process was pretty much the same as it had been in 2020 when I was looking for an apartment, and it was pretty much the same as it had been in 2017. But let me tell you, the difference between the beginning of 2023 and the end of 2023, night and day. It is so much harder to find a place because there is less inventory and the requirements that people are asking you to meet are far more strenuous than I've ever seen them. So, when I got not approved for the apartment that I was looking for before, I was like, "Oh, okay, so the game has changed." And because I had very specific things that I wanted, because if you've got a lot more leeway in what you're looking for in an apartment, the process may not take so much, but there were a few things I was very specific about, primarily location. I knew coupled with lower inventory, it was gonna take more work. So started looking and realized that I was probably gonna end up breaking my lease, which I did. And there was a stipulation in there for like, if you break the lease, this is, what you have to do. My landlord was great about that. Um, Aline asked, how was the move? Uh, did the movers set up your furniture or just place it where you told and you did the rest? Okay. So the move itself, the day of the move, was sort of, I guess, anticlimactic because of all of the stress and the drama that led up to it. I think I started, just kind of looking. It was like, if I find something that meets my qualifications, we'll pursue it, not really think about, well, how close am I to my lease? I ended up leaving my lease 6 months early. Um, and trying to find somebody who would rent to me as a foreigner that would not require a cosigner, somebody to like put up a property in case I didn't pay the rent. that was virtually impossible. When I finally did find this place, which was a fluke, and I got approved, uh, I was getting ready to leave to go to Oaxaca for 3 weeks. So, I'm in Oaxaca trying to coordinate and organize a move and get internet set up and get internet turned off and figure out, well, what do I do with my washer and my refrigerator? Am I gonna move that? All of this kind of stuff. But the actual move itself was pretty easy. I had a recommendation for a mover, and I had seen his crews work. They were very efficient, very professional. I packed up everything myself because I don't want people touching my stuff. But it is my understanding that they would have packed things and given me an appropriate price for that. When it came to moving things into this place, primarily they just um, put it where I told them, and then I had to unpack. Now, um, something I had not anticipated in this building, you are not allowed to use the elevator for a move. And I live almost on the top floor. So that meant the movers had to carry big, heavy things up the stairs. Felt like, "Oh my gosh." I sure as heck wasn't gonna be like, "Oh, okay, so y'all put this here and do that there." But the move itself, they put things by the room that I wanted them. So as they brought things up, I would say, "Okay, that goes in the office, that goes in the bedroom, that goes in the kitchen." Then I unpacked everything else. Um, uh, this place has great light, as did my previous place. That window has like a opaque film on it to give privacy, so that's why it kind of looks like that. Um, will there be an apartment tour? I don't know. I don't know, but if you're curious about what my old apartment looked like, I don't know if y'all saw that, I guess it's a reel or a TikTok or whatever, when CNBC was in town and interviewed me, they captured some footage of my apartment and pretty much gave the world an apartment tour. So if you're curious about what my old place looks like, you can see that. How has Mia adjusted to the move? My girl is confused. You got to remember, she'd been with the dog sitter for 3 weeks. She comes home and I'm trying to think. Okay, we stayed in the old apartment probably one night after she got back. And then we moved here. And she kind of was like, okay, there's all of these people. There's all of this noise. Think about the noise that like tape on boxes making. And this place, she's a senior citizen now, so her vision isn't quite what it used to be. So she's kind of at least to me, seems a little confused. I've officially been in this apartment. I moved in on Tuesday. Today is Saturday. She kind of has the lay of the land down. She knows where my room is, where the living room is, where the food is. But I think she's like, "What the hell's going on?" Like, I go away for a little bit and I come back. We don't even say place. Um, are you required to put down first and last as well as a pet deposit, etc.? Okay. So, as with everything in Mexico, it depends. And this has always been true. Like my very first apartment, I put down a deposit. I paid 1 month of rent for that month I was moving in, and that was it. For my next apartment, I put down a month deposit. I paid for the month when I moved in. I had to get a insurance policy. When you don't have a cosigner or what is the other word? Because it's cosigner is the closest thing or somebody to, like, put up their property. There is an insurance policy that you can pay for that basically will pay the landlord if you don't come through with the rent. So I had to get one of those. My previous apartment, I learned, don't ask if they allow pets. Just, let it go. And so it wasn't until I got the lease on my last apartment and it was like no pets. And I was like, oh, so this is not gonna work. I'm gonna have to walk away because I have a dog. And so um I negotiated down the pet deposit. They initially wanted 2 months uh deposit for a pet, and I was like, no. So we got that down to one. But it will vary. Now I said things have changed a lot. Now they want, because it used to be, let's say you don't have a cosigner, maybe you could offer to prepay 3 months of rent, like to show them that, hey, I got the money, I'll pay. Not now. Now they want, of course, a deposit, they want the rent, they want an insurance policy, and they want a cosigner, which makes no sense. Um, one of the apartments I got turned down for, they turned me down because I did not have my bank statements were not from a Mexican bank. That did not used to matter. It does now. So landlords are pickier and there are fewer apartments available, which makes the whole process finding a place a pain in the ass, honestly. Um, yeah, the no elevators for the move surprised me because the building I just left, there was no issue with that. But in this particular building, um, didn't find out till like moving day that they were like, oh no, you can't use the elevator, no furniture in the elevator. So everything had to come up the stairs. And of course, that impacts you pay the movers whether or not they got to carry things up the stairs. Okay, this is an interesting question. Will you or do you already have a moving resource list or a page with company and utility recommendations? That's not how it works here. Let's talk about utilities. In Mexico, renters do not set up utilities. The owner of the property has them set up. They always stay in the owner's name. The only quote unquote utility a renter would set up would be internet. So the whole idea of like, oh, I gotta move in and I gotta get the gas on and the water, that is not a thing here. Um, and most owners wouldn't let you change the name on those at all. As far as like moving companies, I mean, I'm sure there are moving companies, but there are also mundazas on the corner. Like if you look at the corner, various corners in the neighborhood, there will be a moving truck parked there with a phone number, and you just hit those people up, and then y'all talk about like, hey, this is where I'm moving from, this is where I'm moving to, this is what I got. How much you charge me for that? It's a lot less formal than how we would move from one place to another in the US. So no, I don't have any kind of thing like that. Um, what will you miss about your old neighborhood? What do you really enjoy about this new neighborhood? Here's the kicker. This is the exact same neighborhood. I just live in a different part of it. That wasn't necessarily intentional. That is just how it turned out. So I am in the same neighborhood that I lived in previously. Um, so I think it's great because this was always one of my favorite neighborhoods in the city. Um, does Mia have a balcony sunspot in the new place? No, she doesn't. And I thought about that today, and I wondered if that was part of what why she's being a little weird is no, there is no balcony in this particular unit. In my previous apartment, because it was the height of the pandemic, I really wanted an outer space because, we were being locked down, that sort of thing. In this market, because outdoor space is at a premium in the city anyway, and add how tight the market is, that just wasn't important enough to be up on the list. Now, my girl does not have a balcony. There probably is a sunny spot in the living room where she can sit, but we are maybe 2 blocks over from a really great park. So, hopefully that will make up for her not having the balcony because she really, she enjoyed being able to go out there and survey her domain. Um, did you work with a realtor or other professional to find the new apartment? No. Um, I personally have never had a successful experience working with an agent here. I do know people who have. When I was first looking for an apartment, and then the second time I looked for an apartment, I did get the contact information from an agent because really, to find an apartment in Mexico City, you've got to employ every avenue. So I was looking online, I was walking neighborhoods, I was having agents look. Um, and what would happen is the agent would send me a place, and I'd be like, but that's not a neighborhood I told you, or I told you my budget, that's not my budget. This time, I did it all again online, walking the streets. This is how I knew there was so much less inventory. And uh, like I reached out about an apartment. It was already gone. That's the other thing. It's incredibly competitive right now getting an apartment. Like, one apartment I went to, this is not an exaggeration, y'all. There were at least 8 people would see it back to back to back. And before I got home from seeing it, somebody took it. And so I had reached out about an apartment that, and then the agent was like, "So what are you looking for?" And I gave him the information. Never heard from him. I don't know if because prices are a little easy right now, they didn't feel they could get what I was looking for at the price point. I don't know. But no, I did not use an agent. Uh, I walked the neighborhood. I found a bunch of stuff online. And for this particular place, on my way to view another apartment that I saw walking the neighborhood, I noticed the sign for this one. So I went to that viewing, and then on the way back, I got the number, sent a text, and was like, "Hey, is that apartment available? Can you send me the information?" They sent it. Same day, within the hour, I was like, "Can I see it?" Within 20 minutes of that, I saw it, and immediately after seeing it was like, "I would like it. How do we start the process?" And I moved fast purposely because it had been a month or 2, you know, stuff getting, like, rented out from under me or, that sort of thing. Oh, I didn't see the second part of your question. And can you share the name of your salon or barbershop? Your haircut is fire. My barber just left. So I don't know if y'all noticed this week, I've been in head wraps because I hadn't had a haircut in over 3 weeks. So my barber literally just left before we started this live. So if you are in town, I can share you my barber's contact. They don't have a shop. They do home service only. Um, Great questions. Shoshana, are they requiring all those things for Mexican residents as well? A lot of it, yes, they um, some of it, the cosigner is everybody. This is one of the things that has always set renting in Mexico City apart from other places. People who move to Playa del Carmen or Puerto Vallarta or Guadalajara decide, oh, I want to live in Mexico City, and they come here and they're like, oh my gosh, why do they require so much? So Mexico City has always had stricter requirements. Land like here, a lease for less than 12 months is not legal. But you can go to Playa del Carmen and rent a place month to month, 3 months, 6 months, whatever. They don't do that here, not really. Um, so yes, it is not just foreigners who are feeling the pinch looking for places. It's also Mexican residents as well. It is just it's a tough situation all around because there is so little on the market. But there is also the foreigner piece, because I told y'all that a place I put in for, and they were like, "Oh no, you don't. Your bank isn't Mexican. We can't approve you." They knew that before I applied. First of all, I showed up looking like this. And second of all, I'm talking to the agent. I my interest. I'm asking, well, what are the requirements? As she's telling me, I was like, well, I don't have a Mexican job. I have a Mexican account, but that's not where the money to pay for this would be coming from. And she's like, oh, no problem, no problem. All of a sudden I apply and it's a problem. So there is, it very much feels like there is, I'm not going to say it feels like, straight up, they are less inclined to rent to foreigners than they had been previously. Now, the reason behind that, I don't know. I don't know if it is foreigners behaving badly and being bad tenants, or if it is something else that I don't know. Is there a pet breed or the size limitation that landlords favor or deny? Uh, I see lots of listings that will say, accept small pets. One apartment we went and looked at, they would not take dogs. This building, it was an older building, sound traveled a lot in that building, and people were very particular about it being quiet. So they were like, absolutely no dogs. They were like, you can have a cat, but no dogs. Um, I some just say accept pets because this is a city where, like today, I walked down the street and there was a sheepdog, there was a Great Dane puppy. Like people here have big dogs and they're living in apartments, but if you have a smaller, uh, it'll be somewhat easier. Uh, you mentioned you didn't have statements from a Mexican bank. Do you use international currency card like Wise? No, I don't. I have a Mexican bank account. However, I don't keep a lot of money in it because I don't want that money to disappear. Although through this process, I did consider as that kept coming up, like you would look at the requirements because that's one of the things I had to start doing was before I even went to see a place, I was like, what are your requirements? Trying to get a feel for will they rent to a foreigner? And so many of them were like, and this is very common, they want to see 3 months of check stubs, they want to see, or it's a or they want to see 3 months bank statements so they can see the deposits to your account. That is not something, if you're renting in the US, that's not something you're really used to. And one of the things I considered was having the Mexican bank account might have given me a leg up if I had money going into it. So had I not found this place, I might have started depositing a certain amount of money into my Mexican bank account every month. But no, I don't use Wise. I have a Fidelity Cash Management account. I have a regular Ally account. Um, I don't. I don't necessarily see the advantage to having a Wise account unless you have an account that allows you to have multiple currencies in it. But maybe y'all know something I am missing out on. Uh, these rental streets at CDMX are cutthroat right now. Inventory, price requirements, dog restrictions. It's crazy. It is. And what was so wild, like I said, just January 2023, I helped somebody find an apartment and get in, and prices were a little elevated then, but it wasn't all of the strict requirements. Like we're seeing right now. So it is wild. Do you have to initiate messages in Spanish to avoid being gringo price? You don't have to, but that's definitely a good strategy. Part of my strategy is I never message. I have a dual SIM phone. So I have my Mexican SIM card in it and I have a SIM card with my US number. And so I have them both set up on WhatsApp. I never all of my Mexican business is done from my Mexican number. So I would never message about an apartment from a US number. There are plenty of people who do it, but for me, I want to give the impression I am here. I live here. And maybe if until I show up, they don't realize I'm a foreigner, I can't see how that doesn't help, how that would so you don't have to, but I would suggest it. One more thing uh, you can do. Seeing if there's another question in there. It's a fee. I thought Wise just raised their fees to move money. Um, I don't know, but like I said, I don't use it. I don't use it. Um, So yeah, um, so I found the place right before I went to Oaxaca for a 3-week artist residency. I got back on last Saturday. Technically, I was supposed to come back Monday and I was supposed to move Tuesday. But I was able to finagle things to come back a couple of days early. Um, oh, Okay. Did you tell them about the questions we had to answer in our references? Oh, this is another thing. Um, I've never had to give, I'm not gonna say I never had to give references before, but in the current apartment hunting environment, you need to have some references. Um, and my strategy is to have references who speak Spanish, if at all possible. My previous apartment, we already entered into the what do you call it? Not inspection, investigation, kind of like a credit, which you as the applicant have to pay for. Um, we had already done that. We were signing the lease. I'd already paid for the insurance policy and all that. And they were like, hey, do you have a reference? And I had a friend who had known me for a few years who lived here. It was no big deal. Applying for this apartment up front, I needed to give them 3 references. They wanted the name and phone number of my current landlord. I had to answer questions about how much I made, what kind of work I did, where did I work, what kind of company was it. Then they called me and I had to answer those questions on the phone. It was a whole thing. Um, I don't know that I did that much work when I applied for a mortgage, to tell you the truth, but this is what I'm saying, like, it's different now. Um, I have a friend who's a Mexican agent, we walk the streets, she messages for her, okay. Uh Okay, so that's the other thing. A lot of people from the US ask about agents, and I'm glad Dean mentioned this. The whole agent thing is kind of new here because, like I told you, 90% of properties never make it online. People just put a for rent sign out. If you do get with an agent, typically they're only going to show you the properties they have listed or maybe listed in their company. I did that. You have like a agent working for you, they find a place, and then the 2 agents split the commission. That is that's one groundbreaking here and very, very new. So as mentioned, um, for the place she just found, the other agent was willing to split the commission. So think about it. If you approach somebody and you're like, hey, I need an apartment, and they're being your agent and they're doing the work, and then they find a place, but the person who listed it doesn't want to split the commission because that's not a common thing here. Why would an agent want to do any work for you? So it doesn't, the process is not exactly the same as what we are used to in the US. Oh my gosh, 6 references. Holy cow. I'm telling you. And I think the whole move, this whole week, I'm very glad to finally be on the other side of it, to have turned over the keys to my old place. But the actual physical move part of it, that was the easy part, really, because I already knew who was I knew of a move I was gonna use, have to work really hard to find somebody, that sort of thing, but the stress in, like, we had to put together this whole dossier of, all of these documents they wanted. They had to answer all these questions, and you submit all of this is after I've already paid for them to do the investigation. So the investigation may come back and say I'm a horrible person, and I'm out that money. And then it's sitting around waiting on pins and needles for them to get back to you to tell you yes or that they're going to turn you down. Um, all of that. That was more stress than I wanted to have in my life. Um, uh, I don't want that kind of stress. I don't want that kind of stress in my life. I saw our question about how far from the airport. If you're talking about Benito Juarez Airport, I don't know, 20 minutes, somewhere between 20, 30 minutes to airport. That is the airport closest to the city. That is the only airport that exists for me. I do not go to, is it Santa Lucia? Whatever that other airport is, that new one, it don't exist as far as I'm concerned. Um, uh, all right, so I hope not to move again anytime soon. It is, like I said, moving, finding an apartment in this city has never been easy. Never. However, it is incredibly ridiculous right now, and I'm very glad to be on the other side of it. Um, I don't know. Rental prices are up. But things are up, like the price, everything are up. Now, I can tell you in the areas that foreigners, particularly Americans and Canadians live in, prices in those neighborhoods are stupid ridiculous. You can still get reasonable prices in the city, but it takes some work and it takes you getting out of the bubble. Now, the impact of the people moving here or people coming to work here as digital nomads, I can't tell you directly what the correlation is with prices because my neighborhood is not a neighborhood that's being directly impacted by that. So I don't really have a really great answer for you on that. Um, so what else did I want to share with y'all about the new apartment? Um, I was able to lower my housing costs. A big part of that is because I now am co-living. I have a roommate now, because that's one of the things you got to do. One of the things I talked about is Rashida Dow has talked about it, is that when you move someplace else, it's always a good idea not to live in such a way you're at the top of your budget, because unforeseen things happen. Like, none of us saw the change in the exchange rate happening. Like, that caught us all by guard. And then we thought it was going to be temporary. And then the peso kept going up and the dollar kept going down and down and down and down. So my rent in my previous apartment stayed the same for 3 years. But because of the exchange rate, my rent in effect went up, depending on what the exchange rate was, $200, $300. Y'all, I'm a retired public school teacher. I don't have endless money. So, yeah, I and we're gonna get into the whole, like, making the choice to live with somebody else and all of that. We're gonna get into that at another time on the channel. Um, because y'all know I'm an introverted introvert and I like my space, and I don't like people in my space, and I can't just live with no anybody. So, um, that me making that move, that's a big life pivot. But overall, like I said, I'm in the same neighborhood I was in before, so I love the neighborhood. My location has improved because I am right on a metro line. I am right on a metro bus line. I am in less than a 10-minute walk from three different grocery stores, where I previously um, had not. Grocery store access where I lived before was probably one of the downsides. And it was fine because I was using the Corner Shop app to have groceries delivered, which I like to use because if they had a problem with your order, or they like didn't have something you wanted, uh, they would do it through the app. They wouldn't call you on the phone because I do not like speaking Spanish on the phone. Um, but they discontinued using the computer. You could only, because the corner shop got bought by Uber, and you can only do it through the Uber app. And I was like, oh no, I can never buy groceries again. So now, um, I live, I mean, minutes away. I live minutes away from multiple grocery stores. I'm right on a metro line. My previous apartment was, I was surrounded by three metro lines. One was a 12-minute walk. One was a somewhere between 15, 17-minute walk, and another one was between 18 to 20-minute walk. My ideal situation would have been less than 10 minutes, but remember, I told you I gave myself a week. And I wanted a two-bedroom, two bath. I wanted outdoor space. I wanted to be on mass transit. I was on a trolley bus line, which is not the same as the metro bus, but um, I was I was still able to get where I got to go. So you can't get everything you want. So this place, I got a great location, got good light, there's enough space, everybody has enough space, but, like, there's no balcony, there's no outdoor space. So, you make adjustments. Um, okay. I'm just seeing your question. I am walking distance from grocery stores. There are lots of restaurants. This particular part of the neighborhood is a little bit more affluent, maybe, than the part of the neighborhood I lived in previously. But no, there's plenty of restaurants, there's food stands, there's grocery stores, there's a park. It's a solid lit location. So yeah, so that's what's been going on with me. I have moved. My living situation has changed. I now have a roommate. I have a great apartment. I was able to lower my living costs. I saw a question here. Where was it? Um, ba, ba, ba. My roommate is in the chat. I don't know if y'all picked up on that. One of the things I have been wondering is what's going to happen? Like, is what kind of economic factors have to come into play to see rents decrease? Because Mexico City has always been expensive as far as rent. And I'm not talking about the ex expensive to me because of the exchange rate. Even before that, I mean, you think about places like London, Berlin, Paris. Those kinds of cities have always been expensive. Mexico City is no different. But I was wondering, like, what is it going to take? Are we ever going to see rents decrease? And so one of the things that we did and we found this place um, was to lock in the rent price for 2 years. So, because here in Mexico, I assume this is Mexico, but I know it is specific to Mexico City. In your lease, they typically include how much the rent increase can be. The city limits how much the rent can go up. It cannot go up more than 10% a year. It's actually most people, like my previous landlord, in the lease, it specified it was tied to inflation. So they could ask for an increase that went up with inflation. For 3 years, they chose not to. And then in the fourth year, they asked for an increase, which, they're perfectly legally welcome to. Um, and so trying to mitigate possibly future uh, currency fluctuations and as well as whatever the hell is going on with the current market right now is to lock in the rent rate for 2 years. And also was hoping that that might give me an edge over other people applying for apartments because that's very much the vibe we kind of felt like somebody asked before, like, are they asking these things of locals? Yes. But also, I think there was an element of dealing with a foreigner is going to be more headache. So if somebody Mexican showed up and they had all the paperwork, they had all the documentation, I think from the landlord or the agency perspective, it would be like, oh yeah, we go with the Mexicans because it's less hassle. Um, so yeah, Ivana, I think the supply of properties available to rent has to come back up. I, oh no, man. People are trying to sell their properties. There are so many for sale signs, but are people buying? Um, the buying and selling of properties is was never like it is in the States. This is one of the reasons uh, a lot of people kind of I discourage people moving to Mexico who are immediately like, oh, and I'm going to buy a house or I'm going to buy a condo. Buying here is very easy. Selling, not so much. Think about in the United States, if a house sits on the market more than 30 days, everybody's like, what's going on? What's wrong with the house? Is it not priced right? So on and so forth. Houses, the buying and selling of houses goes back and forth a lot because I think because people have access to mortgages. Now think about how different the home buying market would look if people had to pay cash for their houses or if people had to put down 30 or 40% to get a mortgage. I don't think we would see houses switch hands as frequently. And that's what the reality is here in Mexico. Um, so there are lots of things for sale, so many things for sale, but are people buying? I don't know. Okay, people are selling because there's a big buying market, according to my realtor friends. So folks are making good money on their purchases right now. It'll shift again. I'm thinking that the peso is strong right now. And think about it. Real estate has always kind of been a hedge, a place where you could park your money, so it doesn't depreciate, lose value, and then you pull your money out. I feel like a lot of people are thinking now is a great time for me to pull my money out of this real estate investment I made. Um, so I don't know. I don't know, F Doctor. I don't know if it's a buyer or a seller's market. I would say I am seeing more stuff about mortgages. So, but even the mortgages, um, you know, are expensive. So I don't know. Dee's neighbor just moved, sold his place, didn't even have to hang a sign. So I don't know. So that sounds kind of like a seller's market. But, it's very interesting how quickly the shift has made. Um, and very surprising. And I'm very glad to have found a place to live and not need to worry about that anymore. All right, y'all. I think, oh, this is interesting. That he sold his place and he's like, "I'm just gonna rent." Did you find out why he's gonna rent? I think that's super interesting that he didn't buy another place that he's renting. Um, I find that really interesting. Um, when I first moved to Mexico, and for a long time, there was very little fluctuation uh, with the peso to dollar exchange rate. It was about 20 to 1 back in 2017. There would be every now and then we might get up to 21 or we might drop to 19 point something. But in the last 12 months, we have seen a precipitous drop. And so current exchange rate is uh it's 70 pesos to the dollar. That's kind of like the mid-market rate. But that may not be the rate you get like when people use Wise or they use Zoom or they use MoneyGram to move money into Mexico. Uh, they may not be getting that interest rate. They may actually be getting something like 16. One of the things I tell y'all all the time is if you're using an ATM in Mexico and it prompts you, it gives you an exchange and it says, hey, we'll take this amount of dollars out of your account. What I've noticed, the exchange rate on those is horrendous. I've seen things that were like 15.5 pesos to the dollar. So yeah. All right. Her neighbor said interest rates are really high. He moved to a neighborhood expensive to buy, cheaper to rent. They're a family of four. Yeah. Um, a lot of foreigners assume credit and lending work the same way outside the US as they do, and they don't. Um, Rashida posted in her IG stories last week a credit card, and the credit card, and I've seen this commercial a lot. They tout like there's no annual fee, blah blah blah. The interest rate is 127% before they charge you tax, because here they charge you tax on the interest you pay. So, um, lending loans here. So, think about the ways in which we use debt in the US, and people don't really move that way here. So, yeah, again, when you're talking about buying and selling of apartments, a lot is done cash. Um, Without a mortgage because that's just not a thing here the way it is other places. It is robbery. It is. But that particular credit card's a little on the high end, but I think the average interest rate is something like 75% on credit. So yeah, it's wild out here. It's wild. All right, y'all. Imma go because I'm starting to need to, cough and sneeze and all of that. Thank y'all for coming to hang out with me. I'm not sure about our typical live that would happen on Wednesday, the 14th, because that is the first day of Reclaim the Retreat. So I know I cannot go live at our regular time because I think we're going to be eating pupusas and fried fish. Um, but depending how things shake out, I may be able to go live on Tuesday evening. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But yes, our Galentine's Day retreat starts this week. Um, yeah, let me just put this out there and remind y'all, since it's Black History Month and all, um, we are hosting a retreat in April in North Carolina, in Asheville, in Durham, and a place of Black history, past, present, and future. And particularly for that retreat, we are going to be focusing on the dreaming, creating the vision for the life that we want. So, if our previous retreats didn't work for you because of the cost, this one is significantly cheaper. If it didn't work for you because you couldn't take a week off. This is only 4 days. If our other retreat in El Salvador didn't work for you because it required an international flight, this one is in the US, so there is no passport needed. You should join us. It's gonna be lit. Do the kids still say that? Do they? You should join us. If you go to reclaimtheretreat.com, you can get all of the details about what we will be doing in North Carolina in April. I would love for you to join us. I'm gonna go now, but think about it. Love to see you there, guys.